Alrighty. Hello everybody and welcome back to the stream. I hope everybody's doing well tonight. See, we got a couple of folks filing in early over on the Twitch side. Tammin, good to see you. You did show up early tonight. Usually you're like mid-stream or so at least, so good to see you. Welcome. RCW, good to see you as well. Dr. Elliot, hello. Pug. What's on the menu? So, what's on the menu tonight is we are boiling more code. I only said boiling because it's episode 212. So 212 Fahrenheit is boiling temperature, right? So we're going to take a look at the issue that we're running in here, which I actually had a to-do about, in terms of our swap chain image formats when we actually go to starter frame. If you watch your code, it'll never boil. Yeah, exactly. Finally started tackling the Vulkan spec and API. Pretty good stuff. Yes, it is. I learn something new every time I read it, and I've read it probably 24 times, and I still learn something every single time. All right, so we're going to take a look at this tonight and see if we can't figure out some decent way to sort of handle this either here or maybe at the begin rendering portion. I haven't really decided which. The begin rendering portion does have something that we could use, which I think was, well, I don't know, maybe not. We could do it here, right? Because we have the color attachment info and all that stuff. So we could do it here, but we don't necessarily need to do it every single time, right? It's really something that's only needed at the frame begin. So I'm kind of thinking that we probably ought to just do a transition of format here, but we need some way to communicate that to the front end of the renderer, right? Because OpenGL, for example, doesn't require you to do this. And DirectX and Metal may have their sort of own ways of handling that. So we need some sort of agnostic term where we can pass through the attachments themselves for any sort of processing that needs to happen at the beginning of the frame, which in our case in Vulkan is just a change in layout. So that's kind of where that's what's on the menu tonight, and then we're going to continue debugging through, right, and seeing if we can get this thing a little bit closer to running, if not running tonight. So we shall see. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and dive into it. Raz, how's it going? On DirectX 12 will be a resource state transition, probably. Okay. I haven't looked into that yet, so that should be interesting. Hope so. Haven't seen the engine build yet. Well, it builds, it just doesn't run, right? Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So what I am thinking is, if we take a look at, was this in Vulkan image? Yeah, transition layout. So this is ultimately what we need to call, is this function here. So essentially what we need to do is go from undefined to, let's see. What did this actually say? We still have the error message here. Maximize this. So, can you guys see that behind my noggin, mostly? All right, let's see. Rendering attachment info. VK command begin rendering. Rendering info depth attachment. Image layout is image layout undefined. The spec states if the image view is not null handle, the image layout must not be undefined. It must not be undefined, shader read-only optimal, transfer source optimal, or transfer dest optimal, or image layout pre-initialized. So it can't be any of those. Interesting. So I guess, but that's only talking about the depth format. So maybe we don't actually need to do this. So when we create, let's see, now we do that during the swap chain creation, after the swap chain creation actually. So that's going to be the back end. So when we create the window, here we go. Here's the depth buffer, right? So render resources require. There's the depth buffer. So I guess we don't, did we not transition that layout before, ever? Let me think about this. So that's complaining at the time we begin rendering. The layout of the depth buffer is not right. So that would need to happen before we begin rendering with it. I don't remember having to do that before. In fact, here's the actual back image for the depth stencil. Let's go into here. Do we I don't think we transition layout in here, do we? I don't see where that's being done anywhere. Which for most of these makes sense because we normally don't have to do that unless we're uploading data to it, which for the depth buffer we're not actually doing. So is the problem here then? Maybe the problem is with this, right? So we're setting up this command to begin rendering. So there's color attachments, depth attachment. We only attach the, wait a minute, maybe this is the problem, right? So we kind of filled out like this stuff. Maybe we're just missing, because that's saying image layout is undefined, right? Which I think is undefined is 0. So it's the same thing as us not setting it at all. So maybe we need to do depth attachment, info, image layout, and then vk image layout. I don't think we want I guess depth attachment optimal is probably what we want. So maybe we just need to set that. That might actually be enough. Let's try that real quick. That might actually be a little bit simpler than what I was thinking. I know we're going to have to do a transition of layout for presentation, but we're not there yet. Okay. So now what is it complaining about? Image layout is depth attachment optimal. Oh, the stencil attachment. Ooh, okay. Got it. Okay, so it's complaining about the actual stencil attachment. So we fixed the depth attachment, but not the stencil. Was there a combined one? I forget. Depth stencil attachment optimal is actually the one I want, because it's both depth and stencil. I suppose we should probably actually check for that, but right now they're sort of combined. I'd really like to split those up, but Vulkan kind of combines them. Paused on exception. Okay. What do we segfault somewhere? Yep. Okay. Active viewport set again. So I'm going to guess null here. Yep. Skybox renderer. Internal data. Wait. What? Oh, this is another one that's got a... Okay. Yeah. I see what's happening here. Let's see. Are you exposing command buffers to the front end? Not at the moment, no. Right now having a play test of my game, so just hang in there. Cool. All right, that sounds awesome. I can only imagine getting to that point at this juncture. What I'm doing on my RHI is having state transitions happen inside the command list, buffer and VK abstraction when I do an operation that requires a transition. Like binding a color attachment, it also accuses transition to render target state. Yeah, that does make sense. Sakelos Music, hello. Ruche, thank you for the dance emotes there. Good to see you. So yeah, I think, Tammin, I think that does make sense. I know when I upload texture data, I automatically do that stuff. So it's not too far off base, I guess. Widgeler, hello, good to see you. Welcome. Depth stencil is also combined on DirectX, and I think it's actually combined on OpenGL too, but you can kind of access them separately through the API. You can have depth only, but not stencil only, right? Segmentation fault, K. Yeah, so a segmentation fault is basically when you try to access memory that isn't valid, essentially, right? So in our case, we are trying to dereference a pointer, a null pointer, and obtain a value from, the struct of a null pointer. Rewrite everything in Rust? Nope. No, thank you. What is a stencil test in Vulkan? Never bothered with it. So it's more or less where you can choose a section of your render target, a shape of your render target or something. You can sort of define that as the only portion of that to draw to or not draw to. You can actually, the stencil can work both ways. So you can actually mask off most of your render target and say, I only want to draw to this portion. Or you can do the opposite of that and say, well, I don't want to draw to this portion, but I want to draw to all the rest. A stencil allows you to define that. And so you basically render something to the stencil buffer, and then that is then used to determine when you actually go to render something to the depth buffer, the color buffer, whatever. You can use a stencil test to say, hey, at this point in that particular attachment, within the stencil buffer, should we or should we not draw? Like a layer mask on Photoshop, more or less, yeah. It's a little bit more complicated than that, or it can be, but yeah. Because you can have, it's more than just a Boolean, right? You can have multiple stencil identifiers, as it were, right? And you can have multiple different stencil tests. You can have up to 255 of them. Well, 256 technically. But yeah, that's more or less what it is. What was I doing? I completely lost track. You can see how that would be useful for lighting and stuff. Yeah, so actually in our system, we use it right now for when we render text, we clip that text. And that's kind of what we use to define our clipping area, as it were. And the reason we use a stencil buffer is because we could define an arbitrary shape, not just a box, right? We could define a circle, we could define whatever. We could render anything, any kind of shape to that. We could render actually geometry to that, which is what we do. And we can use it for that. Yeah, you can use it to do outlines, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's very useful stuff. We'll have more use for it as we progress, for sure. Okay, what was I doing? Oh yes, the Skybox render graph node was segfaulting. Okay, so let me actually check this. So there should have been a set Skybox, right? And yeah, we have the struct Skybox stuff here. So let's go to the header file, and we're going to remove. Oops, we're going to remove. Let's see, that's the Skybox viewport matrices. Here we go. We want to remove the viewport struct tag from that, and just use viewport. So we're going to remove this. And what that's going to allow us to do is we can now come in here and include viewport H, right? And we're not going to take a pointer to that thing anymore. We're just going to take the viewport as is, right? And then in our internal data, that's not going to be a pointer either. It's just going to be the thing, right? And that also means the Skybox also needs a viewport, which is going to be the same world viewport that we're using already. So in our test main, where we've kind of done all these other things, right? We're basically just going to copy this. This here, right? And again, we're going to cache this. We have a fix me, right? So yes, I know we're doing string compares. No, I don't care right now. We're going to fix it. So we want Skybox render graph node set viewport. Oh, I think it was called. I think we actually combined it, didn't we? Skybox render graph node set viewport matrices, right? So we need, let's see, we need self, which we already have. Then we need the viewport, the view, and projection. Okay, so we don't need the camera position, which makes sense. All right, so let's get rid of that one, and then do, let's see, we need state world viewport. All right. That should do it for that. Oh, did I screw something up? Oh, right, the actual call that sets it. Okay. Forgot to change this guy. This should be the address of that. All right. Okay, so state backend All right, what segmentation fault is here? Oh, I'll bet we didn't. Okay. This was another thing that I was afraid we were going to run into. So we have a couple function pointers that we didn't set, right, for our rendering backend. Clear depth set, clear color set, I'll bet isn't there as well. In fact, actually, let's look at, let's see, so clear depth set, these functions right here, these guys. We don't have function pointers for those. I think everything else is set. It's just those for some reason. Okay. So let's go to the Vulkan plugin. Plugin main. C, where we assign all of these things, right? Which is, whoops, wrong plugin main. Vulkan renderer plugin main. That's the one I want. Okay. And we needed, let's see, let's put, I guess we can put them here. So we'll say backend, clear depth set equals Vulkan renderer depth, clear depth set, right? We don't actually need the full thing. We can just set that. So let's see, it was, let's actually just do this just for reference so I remember which ones, because I know I didn't set any of those ones, right? All right, so we have, you know what, I'm just gonna do that, and we'll do clear color set. Clear stencil set, right? So these are the clear values for these different buffers. So we're just basically passing this through the back end from the front end. Clear stencil sets. Then clear color is going to be, actually, do we need clear color set? What was the expectation there? Backend clear color. Did we not actually set that up? Clear color set. Oh, clear color texture is what we called it. Okay. There it is. Okay. And then clear depth was the last one, I think. Oh, clear depth stencil. Okay. Clear depth stencil. Right. So we were missing those. All right. So this is also unexercised code, right? So I don't know that I got the implementation correct here either. So let me move this so that you guys can actually see. There we go. All right. Default depth stencil texture 0. Clear depth stencil images. Willie John 2003, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Let's see. Aspect mask includes depth bit, but the image was not created with usage transfer. Oh, really? In order to clear it, you have to set transfer bit? Interesting. I didn't realize that. Okay. So I guess when we create the image, we also have to set it as a transfer destination. I would have thought I would have done that, actually, but maybe not. All right. So that is going to be here, where we create the depth buffer. Here's the backing images. Okay, so VK image usage, depth stencil attachment bit. If it's saying it needs the usage transfer destination bit. VK image usage transfer destination bit. All right. Let's see. Okay, so we're past the clear color image. I guess, did we clear depth first? No, we're clearing color first and then depth. Okay. I don't know why it didn't hit this first last time. So main clear color image does not fall within the begin end range of the core VK image layout enumeration tokens and is not an extension token. Image layout must be a valid image layout value. What on earth layout is it actually using? So this is swap chain create. Probably gonna have to go in there. Let's see. Okay, that's do we have resources acquire? Here's the view creation. Was it the view it was bleating about? No, it's the image layout. So I'm not sure what layout that is, right? That's, oops. It's basically saying this, whatever this value is here is just completely garbage. Oh, thank you for the stretch redeem. Appreciate that. Probably you're ORing to incompatible states. That's entirely possible. The weird part about that is, though, is we have ads. Singy, hello. How's it going? Do you have to roll your own depth stencil buffers in Vulkan? What do you mean by roll your own? That's indeed the weird part about it. Yeah, like the swap chains are the ones that the swap chain provides that. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going on with that. But we'll resume after ads are finished. Did you see the thing I mentioned on Twitter? I think it was yesterday. I don't think so. Did you happen to ping me on it? I don't know if I have your Twitter, actually. Is your handle on Twitter the same? You did mention me. That's weird because... Yeah, I don't see it. Can you drop a link to what you're referring to? Because I don't actually see it. Yes, no, let me see my handle. I don't remember it. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yeah, I'm not sure what... Because normally, like, when I get mentioned or something... Oh, wait a minute. This might be it. Oh, are you talking about the Godot post? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I did see that one. I did see that one. I will... Let me talk to you offline about that. Yeah, we'll chat offline about that in Discord. But yes, I did see that. Okay. All right, so ads are dead. Where are we getting this value from? So this is obviously probably during... Oh, it actually segfaulted right away. Like, through the error, I should say right away. Is it the right image? It is the right image, right? So why is it complaining about an invalid image layout value over an image that I don't create? Help me understand that. I guess, what is the, you know what is the, is it complaining about that, maybe? Oh, there it is right there. Womp womp. So I'm saying the format of it is present, and that's actually not right. That should be, we have in here, detect the actual current layout. So I guess it would be color attachment optimal, I think. I don't know why I put percent there. That definitely doesn't make any sense. This should probably be color attachment optimal. Or not. Layout for cleared image is color attachment optimal, but can only be transfer destination optimal, Shared present KHR, which I don't want to do. General, I definitely don't want to do. The image layout must be, but wait a minute, shared present. So it needs to be a transfer destination, and then, oh, okay, I guess. I'm going to say VK image layout transfer destination optimal. Let's try that one. That's what it had to be for the depth buffer, I think, actually. Was created with color attachment bit, missing transfer destination bit, but I don't have control over that, you dangus. The image must have been created with, yeah, I was wondering about that. So how do I I have to use one of those other formats then? Or one of the other layouts? Because it literally tells me to use that one, and then it says, oh, that's not valid either. So I'm going to put this one here. Right? Layout for a cleared image. Color attachment optimal, but can only be transfer destination optimal, share present KHR, or general. Image layout transfer destination optimal is not valid if the image is not created with usage transfer destination optimal. So how am I going to get around that? Because when I create this WAP chain, I don't think I have control over how those images are created. Rosa, how's it going? From Japan. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. That's a long distance away. Welcome indeed. Tammin, go for it. At least on DirectX 12, images must be created on present state. Oh, Sukelos Music, you actually have a good call out there. There's no role for musicians. Should it be musician and audio effects? Should those be combined or maybe separate? That's a good point, though. There should be one there. If I remember right, you can request usages, but you have to query what's supported. Sergeant Pepper, how's it going? Good to see you. Can just be audio. Okay. I'm going to make a note of that, Sakelos, and get that created. I'm not going to waste time on stream doing that, but yeah. Wow, that pencil is like way too dank. Let me try this one. All right. Written down. Yeah, no worries. But yeah, I will. I'll create the role, and I'll find you in there and just assign it to you. Yeah, no worries. I know it's not going to be immediate. I can never remember how to do that stuff off the top of my head. I always have to look it up. So Okay, so let me put back this. And when we are actually creating our swap chain, can we put, so these are the views for the images, maybe in the swap chain creation info, image usage right there. VK image usage transfer destination bit. I wonder if that will fix it. I'm actually using a combination of two different things to answer your question. Yeah, I'm using NeoVim as my editor. I just use this VS as my my debugger, right? Because I hate it for coding. But unfortunately, at least on Linux right now, it's one of the better debuggers available. So yeah, I'm stuck using it. And you know, if I was on Windows, I might use something different, but I'm on Arch, by the way. So yeah. First time chat, JJ Big Blades, welcome, by the way. Do you use Vim Motions? Yes, I do. I use them as much as possible. I'm still learning new ones all the time, but yeah. I don't use them in VS Code, though, just because I try to avoid it. Oh, I didn't bleep it that time. See, I said something that's not family friendly on stream, right? I'm supposed to bleep VS and not say it. Yeah, I know. Guy slips every once in a while. Whatever will we do? All right. So what is this bleating about now? Now it's complaining about the current layout. Okay. Okay, so now I need to transition layout. All right, so I think I'm going to do that right here as we do clear color texture. So let's do right here. So right before we do that, we'll do, you know what? I think I might do it in line here instead of actually calling that other function. Right, because we actually try to set up like, we kind of do all this stuff, like checking to see what we're to and from and all that stuff. And then we call this guy. But I don't really need to run through all that logic in this case. We know pretty explicitly what we're doing. So I'm actually going to take this guy. Right, and we're going to just transition the layout. And we're going to do source stage is VK image layout undefined because we don't care. And then we're going to go to VK image layout transfer destination optimal, I think is what I wanted. Yes, it did. CM Griffing with a rate of 51. How's it going, Chris? Good to see you, buddy. What were you getting up to on stream tonight? Thank you so much for the raid. If you're not following Chris, I highly, highly suggest you do so. I'm going to give a shout out there. There we go. You got your voice bot working again. Dude, that thing is epic. I have not forgotten about the Vrominator. super epic stuff. All right, so for those of you who are new here, I will give a quick intro as to what we're doing. So, what we're doing on this channel right now, at least, is we are building something called, thank you guys for the follows, by the way. We're building something called the Kohi Game Engine. There's a link there to kohiengine.com. So this is a game engine written from scratch using C with Vulkan as our initial rendering backend. And I say initial rendering backend because we have plans to support Direct3D and Metal. It is cross-platform compatible, so it runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS desktop environments right now, with plans for mobile in the future. It is open source and free, so that means it is hosted here on GitHub. It is Apache 2.0 licensed, which basically means that you can use it however you see fit, personal, commercial, does not matter. As long as you say you used it, that's all I care about. It will never have any sort of licensing or royalty fees ever of any kind. It'll always be 100% open source and free. It started off as a YouTube tutorial series. We kind of changed formats a couple of times over the course of the project and landed on this sort of live streaming format. So that's where we are now, and we basically just have been growing ever since. So we also have links here to our Discord server, the GitHub, YouTube, Twitch links, Patreon, all that good stuff. Also the stream here at the bottom where I can wave to myself, right? And then the only other bit is we do have some API documentation. So this is kind of generated on the fly whenever we do new builds. So we have this available as well. So you can kind of come in here and drill down into some of the auto-generated documentation. One of the better things that we have here is our dynamic array. And it's got info on how to use the API, right? So there's that. I think that pretty much covers it. The only other thing I'll show is because we are in the middle of, or I should say near the end of a pretty massive refactor effort, the engine does not currently run at the moment, so I can't demo it, unfortunately. But what I can show you is a couple screenshots that we have. We've got a basic PBR pipeline. We have our own UI system that we're building from the ground up. We've got some very basic lighting with cascading shadow maps, stuff like that. And we're just kind of adding features as we go. We're building pretty much everything here from scratch. So that takes a while. Project's been going for about 3.5 years, but that is part-time, right? If I were working on this full-time, we're really talking about probably about 6 months worth of development. And so yeah, that's kind of where we're at the moment. So I hope all that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, this is an interactive stream. I do enjoy talking with you guys. So, feel free to jump into chat and I keep an eye on it to the best of my ability. Seen you in the shorts, by the way. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. I'm glad to hear those are making the rounds. That's cool. Questions aren't allowed. Arvis. Well, I mean, so I usually operate under the rule that there are no stupid questions. Only a stupid question is the one that's not asked, right? So long as it's related to what we're doing on stream. Now I know, Arvis, you'll probably take that as a challenge. But yeah, generally speaking, I don't try to say any question is stupid because I always try to help people learn, and I'm always hoping to do that however I can. So, if you guys do have a question about something, don't feel like it's a stupid question. Feel free to ask. Okay. From over on the YouTube side says, I asked, if anyone asked, I did not work till 3 a.m. How's the tractor driving? Refactor Tractor is going well. Yeah, he's getting some miles put on him. What flavor of global illumination are you planning on using? I've been looking into voxel cone tracing, but it seems less popular than other methods. I actually haven't picked one yet. So we might go through the pros and cons of the different types of it, and we might actually implement different types of it. That's one thing that we're kind of doing as a theme with this engine is we're trying stuff out. And if it works, cool. If it doesn't work, we rip it back out and try something else. We've done that a number of times. This is designed to be like an educational resource. So we do experiment and try with a lot of things here. And that's one of the things that we like to do. For example, our UI, right now we have a retained mode UI, right? And we're also going to have an immediate mode UI. We're going to support both of those. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. I have no questions, only answers in the form of a question. Jeopardy style. I like it. It's a challenge, so now of course I have to. Nice. What's your thoughts on Raylib? So I think Raylib is a fantastic resource for those of you who aren't necessarily looking to get down to the nitty-gritty Vulkan levels of things to write. It's great for writing, especially simple games, right? 2D games, it's great for that. I haven't used it for anything beyond that, to be honest. So I can't really speak too much on that. But it is on my radar especially they just released version 5, I think it was. And so it is on my radar to actually make a project with that so I can speak a little bit better on it. But from what I've seen, it's a pretty fantastic resource. Alrighty. So what we are doing here is we're sort of stitching things back together, and we are debugging through all the stuff that we've recently added to try and get things up and running again. So we've done most of our refactoring. It's just, hey, I forgot to, to fill in a value here, or I forgot to move this code around over here, or hey, we've got a null pointer here. It's that kind of stuff, right? And in this case, we're actually looking at Vulkan image formats. So let's see. We have, this was for the image layout, undefined. Okay, so we were actually in the middle of setting up a layout transition. So in this case, our color buffer texture is in need of a transition from undefined to transfer. Oh, I need the pipeline barrier info. Let's see. So I'm going to have to fill this out. Yeah, we used this. Right, so let's see, old layouts is, did we actually do that down here as well? Source stage, destination stage. Oh, these are supposed to be the stages, aren't they? Yeah, I have these wrong. Okay, so let's take this one. That's the old layout. Thank you guys for the follows, by the way. I really appreciate that. It helps me grow the channel a lot, so I really appreciate that. We're showing essentially a way to build a game engine from scratch. It's not the only way to do it. It's not even necessarily always the right way to do it, because like I said, we experiment a lot on here. So we try things specifically on purpose sometimes that don't work, right? Just to illustrate why they don't work. But the idea here is that hopefully you guys will actually gain from seeing me debug stuff, learn how to debug, and also, understand some of the realities that go into developing a project like this, right? It's not all just a clean cut tutorial, start to finish like thing. After this refactor, what will be left on the list before starting our first game? Realistically, I don't think there's too much. I probably realistically could start on it as soon as this refactor is done. There may be things that pop up. I suspect there's going to be pain points when we actually start developing the first game with this. There's going to be things that come up that's like, well, that's not really optimal usage, right? We should probably make that API a little bit easier to use. I can already think of one example of that. So there are going to be things that we're going to have to revisit for sure. But I'm going to try and keep that to a dull roar as much as possible. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Any tips for learning some good C? So if you're talking about learning the C language itself, the resource I always point to is the one that I used to learn, which is this guy. It's a bit of an old book now. Let me see if I can get it in frame there. So it's Sam's Teach Yourself C in 24 Hours. You know, like I said, it's been around for a while, but I think it's a really good resource on learning C. And it's, you know, 24 cumulative hours, not like 24 like hours as in learn it overnight. Obviously, in my experience, it took a little longer than 24 hours to read it, but, you know, or to learn it. But, you know, I was able to confidently write in it after spending that much time going through the book. So that is definitely the resource I always say to start with. Would you consider making a game jam for your engine? Eventually, that is the plan, yes. Once it's got to be a little bit more stable, right? We're working towards a version 0.7 here. So I figure the first game that I ship is going to increment the version number to 1.0. That's probably going to have some patches, fixes, stuff like that on it. I figure probably once we're like 1.1 or 1.2, it might be ready for actually other folks to use. Of course, it's open source, so you can pull it down and use it whenever you want. But, you know, I don't have any like documentation or any of that stuff on standing up like a new project. I got to set all that stuff up. So does that assume you already know programming? It starts off pretty high level. I would say, I'm trying to remember if this actually, I think it actually starts off like telling you like what a compiler is, right? Like, I think it starts off at that level. Like, what is C, right? I don't think it assumes much. It's been a while since I've read it, to be completely honest. But I mean, it goes over like all the data types, the way that, you know, stuff is held in memory, the way you interact with memory, like all that stuff is in here. So like it doesn't assume that you know much about any of that kind of stuff. You have the C++ version of that book? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't have that one, but I do have a couple C++ books back there. But yeah, I don't have it like an intro C++ book, unfortunately. This is a compiler to build your own. You have 24 hours. You know what? If there was a book out there that said build your own C compiler in 24 hours, I'd buy the hell out of that, right? Just for the sake of, you know, it being that awesome. Building a compiler is always something I've wanted to do, but man, I don't have time for that. Not and actually get stuff done. Okay, so this was talking about source and let's see, we had source stage and destination stage. So the layout change that we're going to be doing is this guy. So let me just grab this. Slam this in here. And then we're going to do top of pipe and transfer bit. That makes sense. Okay. So top of pipe is basically like the, whoops, what did I hit? So we want top of pipe for the beginning. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Appreciate that. And transfer is where we want to wind up, right? Because we are using the transfer right to actually do this, right? So let's get rid of this. And that should solve our issue that we're having. We have ads. So one thing that I do on this channel, I wish I'd seen the ad timer coming, but I missed it, is I like to pause the stream whenever ads come up so that nobody misses any content, right? Because if you're watching and listening to a programming stream and then ads come up. It's a full screen thing. You can't hear or see what's going on, so that kind of sucks. Yeah, remember when you said to be starting the game in 2 months? That was a funny one. Painful memories. Do you have a more modest, careful estimation, or is this... So the reason I had said that is because I was going to put this refactor off until the game, but then I decided against that. Because I was like, well, I really don't want all of this stuff to wait until the first game is done, because a lot of this stuff would get in the way of actually doing that. So that was the estimate without this refactor. So at this point, I'll say probably a week or two after the refactor is complete, then we'll be able to actually move on and start creating a game. That being said, so the Windows layers is refactored. The Linux layer is refactored. The Mac OS layer still needs a refactor, but that should be relatively trivial. So I can't actually merge this in until it actually works on all three platforms, because otherwise it's not considered stable, right? We've got to test the crap out of it before we actually push it into our main branch. Do you have multi-threaded command recording in the engine? Not yet, but we have some things in place to be able to do that. We don't have it set up quite yet. That is one of the things that we're going to be doing probably post the first game, because one thing, we set up a render graph, which right now isn't visual, but we have this application config, which is in a scripting storage format that we made custom, right? But basically we have this concept of a render graph with nodes in it, and the node essentially takes care of different portions of the frame, right? So each render graph is essentially a representation of what happens in a particular frame. So we have this sort of begin node, and then we clear the color, and then we clear the depth stencil, and then we render the skybox. We render a shadow map for the scene, right? Then we do a forward rendering pass, which uses the color buffer, depth buffer, and shadow. Then we draw some debug shapes. So like our debug shapes are like these boxes and that kind of stuff, right? The grid. So we do that, and then we draw the standard UI over that, and then we end the frame, which is presentation, right? And so all of these nodes have a concept of sources and sinks, right? So the source is basically something that provides something like a texture or a value, something like that. And then a sink is a sort of socket that the source can plug into. And so you'll see like source name, frame begin dot color buffer, right? So this will actually take from frame begin, which is this guy, the color buffer into its particular sink, right? And so the reason I'm bringing this up to answer that question is because there are certain parts of this that have dependencies where it needs to be done linearly, and there are parts of this where we could multi-thread it. One of those places would be the skybox. So what I want to do, or sorry, not the skybox, the shadow, right? So technically speaking, while we are rendering the skybox, we could also at the same time be rendering our shadow maps, right? Because nothing requires our shadow maps until we actually get to the forward pass. So technically speaking, actually, we could be clearing the color buffer, clearing the depth stencil, and rendering the shadow map at the same time, right? And then maybe, these two would complete. We could also be kicking this one off while this guy is still running, etc., and then be able to synchronize those to say, well, when all three are ready, then we can do this. That's the eventual goal. We don't have that in yet, but we do have automatic dependency resolution. So when we hook up the sources and sinks, this does actually automatically figure out, based on those connections, what needs to be rendered in what order. So we do have that, but yeah. I learned from Sam's, but I think CPP reference is all you need, if I'm being honest. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I use that all the time to look stuff up, so for sure. that makes sense. For Vulkan, any tips? Like to avoid OpenGL, would that be a good idea? So that depends on your knowledge of graphics programming in general, right? Have you ever done it before? Because I will say Vulkan is very verbose and allows you to shoot yourself in the foot very easily, right? So I usually don't recommend it as a first beginning API. I usually tell people start with relatively modern OpenGL to understand the concepts, and then once you understand those core concepts, quickly move away from GL to Vulkan. That's usually what I say. Thank you guys for the follows, by the way. I really appreciate all the follows. That helps a lot. So yeah, that definitely, if you're not familiar with OpenGL, I still would recommend starting there, simply because the API won't get in your way, right? And then once you understand how to build, a basic OpenGL renderer that does most of the basic things that you would need, uploading textures and lighting and multiple render passes, things like that. Once you're at that point, then switch over to Vulkan. Even if you're a pro, Vulkan would still be a pain. Yes, and it is. And we've seen that here on stream, actually a little bit tonight. But, I mean, at the same time, you get used to it. You get used to what the error messages mean. You get error messages that look like this, and they seem super ugly, but you learn how to sort of parse them and make sense out of it, right? Did I build this already? I think I did. Yeah. All right, so speaking of that. All right. So, core validation, draw state, invalid image layout. Okay, another image layout issue. So this time it's with our depth stencil. Okay, so we've moved on. So we fixed our color issue. All right, so let's see. Command buffer expects VK image, kohi default depth stencil texture 0, subresource aspect mask 0x2, array layer 0, MIP level 0. To be in layout, transfer destination optimal. Instead, it is undefined. Okay, so this is the same issue. So this is actually literally the same thing that we just solved here for clearing the color texture. We need to do that. We need to do that for the depth texture as well. So before we can clear the depth stencil texture, which is here, we're basically going to do the same thing here. Let's see, do we need to change any of these properties? Yes, the aspect. This is going to be depth bit. That might also, is there also a, there is a stencil bit. Okay, so we probably need both of those. MIP levels, okay, all this stuff should be fine. Okay. And then I don't think I need that anymore. Okay, so we're going to transition the layout from like an undefined layout, meaning we don't care what the initial layout was, to a transfer destination optimal memory layout. And then once we do that, then we can go ahead and clear it, and then it will also be ready for any rendering that we do to it. We might actually have to transition this again to a color and depth attachment layout. So we may have to do this more than once. We'll see. TCAP's chat is here. Yep. We have no live programming. Yeah, that's true. It is true. I appreciate the follow, by the way. Thank you. All right. So we built that. Let's run this and see. That should have fixed that problem. Cool. It did. Oh, All right, we got way further in the chain, it seems. I'm seeing present issues. Images past it. Okay. So this tells me that we apparently got all the way through the queue. All the way to present. And so we basically just need to transition the color attachment image layout to present format. But is in image layout to transfer desk optional. Okay, optimal rather. Okay, all right, so that is, thankfully we know how to do that. So let's take all of this. You know what? Let me see something really quickly. Do we have... Because we technically have a function that does this for us. Okay, so this doesn't actually try to insert like a staging buffer or anything around it. So maybe we just use... Maybe I should just use this function instead of like repeating myself all over the place. I'm going to say maybe on that. I'm not going to do it just yet. Because like some of this stuff has to be, like this won't be valid for us if we do that. This guy. Okay, so let's take a look at frame end render graph node. So this is the guy where we have to present, right? And so when we present, we have one attachment, which is going to be our color buffer. So we need a way to transition that, but I don't think we have a call exposed to the renderer front end for this to be able to call. So we may have to add that. So our Vulkan backend, clear depth stencil, do we have? Frame present. What does this guy have in it? So we present based on a window. This is the actual present though. So I'm thinking it should happen before this. I guess we could call it frame submit. Yeah, because that layout change has to happen before this. Right, so we have all these commands that we're building up in our queue. When we say frame submit, that's what actually submits the queue. So we have to do it before that. So I guess we could do... We do have clear color texture. Should we call it like present color texture? Or color texture prepare for present? That seems kind of long, but that's kind of what it's doing. Let's see. We've got some chats to catch up on. Agent 427, first time chat, welcome. As a noob, should you jump right into learning the whole engine, language, etc. right away, or should I flesh out ideas and try to learn specifics? Hoping to enter Pirate Jam 15 with no prior experience. So, when you say no prior experience, do you mean no prior programming experience at all? That's the real question, right? If you have no programming experience, then you're going to have to pick a language and learn one, right? And at that point, if you're wanting to do a game jam, you're probably going to want to just pick an existing engine. Let's see. You have experience with HTML5 and Java, but from high school. Okay, so a long time ago. Gotcha. Okay, so you probably are going to want to pick. You'll either want to pick an engine like Godot. I usually don't recommend Unreal unless you really need Unreal specifically for something. I will not recommend Unity anymore. You could also use a framework like Raylib. Raylib is pretty easy to get up and running. SDL is also pretty good. I've used SDL in a number of projects. That's pretty good. That's C++, right? Those will allow you to sort of jump into getting something drawing to the screen without having to have, jumping through all the OpenGL or Vulkan hoops. Won't be able to do no engine. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it all depends on how much experience you have. You could also, if your experience is in, truthfully, if your experience is in like HTML, JavaScript, you might want to use something like, maybe that's even web driven. Like you could use 3JS or what's the other one? Babylon JS, right? So you could do something web browser based too, because I think most game jams will accept those as well. libgdx, yeah, feels old, man. Yeah, I hear you. I made a game with libgdx a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, there's I would say maybe look into using some sort of framework, right? Either a framework or an engine. I listed off a few there that you could start with, and I would start off with those. All of those should have tutorials out there on how to use them. So, like I said, if it's HTML5 and JavaScript, maybe the web is your answer, right? All right. Let's see. Yeah, recommend Raylib if you eventually want to learn engine programming. Yep, exactly. It depends on how much time you have to learn it too. Currently experimenting with it. Was curious, how would you manage that considering every binding is required by, I'm currently experimenting with it. Was curious, how would you manage that considering every binding is required by draw call to be set in the same command list? Command buffer, I think is what you're looking for there. So, I mean, there's two ways, right? You handle your texture bindings very carefully through descriptor sets that are generally separated out by update scope, right? So you might have like global one, like in this engine, we have global descriptors, which are only updated once per frame for like the whole scene, right? So that might be projection matrix, right? Then we also have what we call instance level, right? Which is like a material instance. So if you have like a wood material and a metal material, it would be the properties of that material, the textures that go along with it. And then we also have something that we call local, which is actually per object that's actually drawn in the world. So you might have 2 or 3 different things that use that wood material, right? But they all use the same wood material. And so you'd have those 3 separate sets of descriptor sets that get updated at different points. And that's more or less how you might want to manage that. We actually went through that whole process in this series, setting that up. Let's see. It's faster to see results of making a game, which will make learning a bit more fun. That is true. Godot probably, yep. My team has Godot, GameMaker, Unity, Unreal in mind for the jam. Be learning a bit here and there, mostly on Unreal. Feels overwhelming to just watch a broad tutorial. Yes. Unreal is a fantastic engine, but it is complicated. Spending most of our time learning Blender at the moment, but I know coding everything is going to be the hard part. Depends on where your skill set is, right? Vanilla JavaScript canvas. I mean, that is a thing, right? I've written a lot of stuff that way. JS Canvas is going to be in the order of building an engine from scratch if you're not using an existing framework. Yep, I would agree with that. Okay. Yeah, I would agree with Arvis. Godot is probably what I would say go with there. Or Game Maker, yeah. Game Maker is they brought back the $100 license, so hoping to kind of set a boundary for our team, so to speak, keep the people organized and on the same page. Yeah. Okay, cool. Glad I could help. I like the dumpy. I'm so glad they brought that back, by the way. Unreal is good for 3D games mostly. Yes, that is also true. They do have 2D stuff, but it's not really all that great. Only concern with Godot is running into potential bugs. I mean, every engine has bugs, right? Unity especially. Outside of that, it's pretty accessible and established standards. Yep, yeah. Okay. Sandwich, thank you for the follow, by the way. All right, so where were we? We needed a transition layout. So I'm going to do this. In fact, I'm actually just going to copy. It's almost going to be a straight up copy of this function. And I'm doing that for right now because I don't know how much I'm going to have to separate out. So let's actually put this at the bottom. And we're going to say Vulkan renderer. We'll say color, texture, prepare for present. That's a really long function name. I hate it, but I think that's just what we're going to have to go with. All right, so this one, the old layout is going to be transfer destination optimal. And the new layout is going to be present source, KHR. And the other things we're going to have to set is going to be, well, actually, do we have? Don't we actually have a specific? We don't have it. Oh, I think our render passes were doing this before. Okay. So let me look this up. So we'll say layout present. We must have nuked that then. All right, we're just gonna try this and see how it works. Aspect color bit, that should be fine. This is the only bit I'm not sure about. I think we want color attachment output. I think. And I think what we need here is, was it transfer bit? I think. Not 100% sure that's right. All right, so we're going to transition the layout for presentation. We don't actually need to do this bit. We just need to transition the layout, right? So we're going to take this, and we'll go into the header file here. And we'll do that. We'll put a struct marker on this. Let's grab this. Let's go to render types. And we'll slam this right here. So now we're going to define our function pointer that is going to define the interface that the front end renderer uses to communicate with the back end. So we'll just name that. This needs a struct marker as well. So we can take this, go to the renderer front end. And we'll do render buffer. No, that's render buffer clear. Clear depth stencil. Render clear color. Okay. So we're going to put it right here. And we're going to mark it KAPI so it gets exported. And we'll say renderer here. Right, and this is where we're going to put our documentation comment. So performs operations required on the supplied color buffer, or I should say color texture, before presentation. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Okay. So I think of the params we can actually just do this. Oh yeah, and at this level we don't actually want the texture internal data, we want the texture handle, because we perform that lookup internal to the renderer. Right, so we have that. Texture to prepare for presentation. Okay. All right, and in this case we're actually going to return void, because we don't, this is not a failable operation. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to go to the definition of this guy, and we're going to go here. And I'm actually just going to grab this because it's mostly the same. Except this is going to just be return. Oh, I did miss something. This should be render system state. We don't want the backend pointer yet. Right, so this should be render system state. That will fix that. We perform the handle lookup. Then we call the backend and we say color texture prepare for present, pass through the data, return. Otherwise, we bleat that something failed if that is not a valid handle, right? So let's grab this and put that there. Okay, so that is done. We need to go to Vulkan plugin main and wait for ads. I like the use of the emote there, Sandwich. Appreciate that. Thanks again, everyone. You're awesome. The vibes, enjoying the vibes, lurking while I'm learning. That's awesome. Glad to hear it. Not 100% sure how wide transfer destination usage support is. I remember looking into it a while back. Ended up just using a small render pass to clear color. Which I suppose I could do too, right? I'm trying to get away from using render passes because I'm using dynamic rendering. So I think I should be good, but we'll see. I may have to use something else instead. From like, I see you. Yep. The lads. I think the Arnold one is better though. All right. Ads are dead. Tom or Stock, hello. How's it going? Welcome. What I meant was, for example, on my small app, the view projection matrix is used in every draw call, but not every draw call command is made in the same command list. So I have to set the view projection matrix in every command list at the moment. Oh, I gotcha. Okay. What I did in my render is keep the swap chain images internal to the back end. So when the frame is finished, internally the final step is added to copy the contents of the drawn image to the swap chain image. Yeah, so I mean, at some point I'm going to have to do that. And that's the reason I made it external, is because, so right now the color buffer is the swap chain image, right? But eventually it's not going to be, because when I go to like put in, support for HDR and things, I'm going to have to use formats that aren't going to be able to just be the same as the swap chain image, right? So I'm essentially going to have to do render to another color texture that I create the images for, and then blit that final result to the swap chain image. Arnold is definitely a vibe. Yeah, I just, something that just kind of happened. This way I don't have to worry about transitioning to present. Yep, exactly. Yeah. It's all handled internally, which is something I'm probably also going to wind up doing. It's just, that's another refactor on top of the refactor I'm already doing, so I'm trying to avoid it at the moment. But yeah, eventually the color images that I draw to are going to be separate images than the swap chain images. Swap chain image transitions from copy dest, present, copy dest. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I need to hook up the function pointer. So we have backend. Prepare for present equals Vulkan renderer color texture prepare for present. And this really belongs like up here. Okay. And then I can go to, finally, our render graph node for frame end, and we can put that in here. So one thing that we're going to need is we are going to call it renderer color texture prepare for present. We need to grab this state. Let's see, we should have that cached. Do we not have... Oh, we don't have an internal state for this, do we? Okay, I'm going to do it the dirty hack way initially, and then we'll fix this in a minute. So we'll do engine systems get renderer system, right? Render system states. Renderer, that's a pointer. Right. We have that. And then we can just pass renderer. And then the texture handle is going to be oops, to put that there. Our renderer, let's see, that's going to be where did we add that color buffer sync to? Did we actually? Yeah, self sync 0. Okay, so we need self syncs 0, and then we need bound source value t render texture handle. Okay, must use struct tag. Sure, we don't need to include. We're just passing it through anyway, right? Okay, so we do that. That's a void, so we don't need to worry about that. So that should handle our transition for us if I've wired everything up correctly. Don't know that I have, but I guess we'll find out. Well, we eliminated some of it anyway. Oh, the access is wrong. Supported by more than... Okay. Because it's using access transfer write bit, which is not supported at that stage. That is because where did I put that? Here we go. Where did I put that? Right. Was it the right that it was complaining about? Yeah, it was the right. I think color attachment read bit. I think it might be color attachment read bit that I need. I think. Did we segfault somewhere? What is going on? Supposedly running. Okay, that's interesting. So we're not seeing anything drawn, but it is running. I don't think it's actually, it almost seems like it's hung up somewhere, but I think it's actually, I think it is actually running. So let's see what it's actually doing. Are we just waiting for a fence? Is that? We're just infinitely waiting for a fence. That seems fine. Let's see. Current frame. Yeah, it's never changing. It's failing to step. That's pretty sweet. So my question is, what is actually happening now? Oh, look at this. It's actually reaching out to GL core. What is NVIDIA doing with their drivers? Dispatch wait for fences. Okay, so it's waiting on the fence at frame 0. So are we not updating that then? Let me try relaunching this and just see what it does. It's like hanging for a second. Glad I'm not running this locally on the machine that I'm streaming from, because that would probably hang everything. Waiting for that long would have tripped TDR in Windows. Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering if because normally this, yeah, it would have definitely like timed out, right? So let me see something. If we go to the old spec, timeout. So this is a timeout period in units of nanoseconds. That's what I thought. Which I don't know what max int nanoseconds is, but let's change that to like a sane value, right? Let's see. So maybe instead of that, we do, I don't know, something like that, right? That's in nanoseconds, so that shouldn't be very long at all. Should basically immediately poop itself if it times out. Okay. That's interesting. So semaphore must not have any pending operations. If semaphore, okay. I didn't think we changed anything in terms of like our sync object logic. But we must have. So that's fun. We're probably going to have to retrace through all of that to figure out what we broke there, which is not going to happen tonight. But we did make some pretty good progress, right? Because now we're actually making it all the way through at least a single frame in our render graph without any errors. Swap chain needs to be associated with a window. Didn't we already do that? Yeah, that's done. if that has anything to do with... We were getting another error in here. Early on. Not that. That's audio stuff. Unless maybe we fixed it. Nope. Okay. I guess not. I was going to say, I thought we were getting an error early on when we were setting up the swap chain, but I guess that went away. You know what? I haven't done in a while. Let's clean everything and do a full rebuild. Is RenderDoc on Linux? Yes, but I don't think we're getting to the point where RenderDoc would be useful. Because we are not actually rendering frames yet, we're getting stuck on a fence, which tells me that all of our logic having to do with our sync objects, something got foobar somewhere. And I just have to find out where. Let's see. Trying to make render graph while using dynamic rendering was the exact moment I quit Vulkan. Fair. That's exactly what I'm trying to do now, so fun stuff. Following a tutorial trying to make your first triangle, your Vulkan first triangle. Awesome. You're going to love when you finally hit that, by the way. It's going to be so satisfying because of the journey to get there. Let's see. This refactor having a standalone color texture to draw to should be pretty straightforward with your setup. Yes, it will be. I just was trying to minimize the damage. Just hold a texture in the render internal state and you're pretty much good to go. Yeah, that's all it is. Yep. Let's see. What is dynamic rendering? 1.3 extension allows not using frame buffer plus render passes. Exactly. Yep. Which is that was a change as part of this refactor. We changed over to using dynamic rendering. When you spec the commitment to making an actual engine, I got bugs in my level editor and decided to quit. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it has been dedication for sure. I've been at it for 3 years, right? In my spare time anyway. Okay, so let me think about this. So we probably need to review our logic on... So when we create a new window, we have a couple things that we do. We create our per frame and flight resources, right? So this is any resources that we use while we're generating a current frame, right? So we have... I probably ought to debug through this code because I'm sure there's stuff in here that's just not. Well, I haven't really changed too much here though, so I don't know. Reduce this to a single block. I don't see any of these to-dos here being an issue. So those are just the per frame and flight resources. What about the... What about the per swap chain image resources? So we update the texture parameters. That's already done. Views, all that stuff is done. Okay. So we create 2 semaphores per frame and flight, which typically should be 2, right? If we're triple buffering, it'd be 2. So we have image available semaphores, which is basically when a swap chain image is available, that gets flipped. And then we have another one, which is queue complete semaphores, which gets flipped at the end of our queue executing. And then we also have a fence, which we create in a signaled state. Oh, wait a minute. indicating the first frame has already been rendered. This will prevent the application from waiting indefinitely the first time to render, since it cannot be rendered until a frame has been rendered before it. Did we screw up something in here? So this is in-flight fences. I don't think so. Let's see. Been wondering, how do you have those save lines on VS? Let me, because I saw your YouTube comment, you were asking me this as well. What do you mean by save lines? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Can you give me like a... Where on the screen are you talking about? Let's see. Hey Joshua, how's it going? What's the focus for the next few months? So the focus right now is we are focusing on getting this refactor finished. And then we're going to look at creating our first game with this, which likely is going to involve us looping back to the engine and fixing some stuff as well. But we're going to go through the process of actually standing up a new game project and actually looking into creating a simple game using it. Do you mean bookmarks? Yeah, so I'm not sure what you mean by the save lines, Magma. I'd be happy to answer the question if you could clarify a little bit. Let's see. Beard keeps getting longer. Yeah, a little bit, you know, a little bit at a time. I've been told I'm not allowed to trim it until we release the first game. At least that's what chat said. But I also made a bet with chat. Or bet, I guess, a deal, I should say, that if we hit 100,000 YouTube subscribers by the end of the year, that I would cut my beard off. And write a Vulkan renderer in Rust, because I hate myself. So that deal still stands. We're in June now, so spread the word, I guess, right? But yeah, that particular deal is only if we hit 100,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel by the end of the year, before we flip over to 2025. The other deal that I made with chat, because I really don't think this one will ever happen, is if we ever hit 1 million subscribers on YouTube, I will write a Vulkan renderer in assembly. Again, because I hate myself. Apparently. Let's see. If there's non-unsafe Vulkan wrapper library, then it's fine. Open Rust file, unsafe, copy paste renderer code here. Yep. Yeah, that's more or less what I'm going to wind up doing. Because I didn't say I have to write it safe, right? That wasn't part of the deal. So it's going to be unsafe code all the way. So the whole thing's going to be marked as unsafe. That's what I'll do. Magma Dev, if you would get back to me, I will answer your question, but I need more specifics. Have you ever struggled with wrist or arm pain from work? Yes, I have. And that is why I've changed my setup a few times. So like when I type, I don't rest my wrists on the desk anymore. I keep them hovering so that I'm at the right height. I also learned to touch type properly, because for the longest time I didn't actually do that, and that cost me big time. And then I also make sure to stretch my hands. So you'll see me do this a lot. You'll see me like stretch my hands and stuff like that. That's all helps with that kind of stuff, because I did used to get a lot of pain with that, but since I'm constantly moving my wrists around and stretching and trying to do that kind of thing, it helps a lot. Started with Direct 3D 11, then switched to Direct 3D 12. Not sure about the resources you should use. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to learning DirectX or Direct 3D, I would say, yeah, learning 11 first is probably going to be easier, and then jump to 12. Because Direct 3D 12 is basically like Vulkan. It's very close. I don't know what resources are out there for transitioning from one to the next, though. Okay. So I think this is probably where I'm going to wind up stopping for tonight, I think. Just because we made some good progress tonight. I may have to research this one to actually figure out what we need to do to fix that and get around it. If I don't have it figured out by the next stream, we will continue to debug it. But we made really good progress tonight, I think. I'm pretty happy with where we got. So, all right. So let me take a look at who we can raid. Just looking really quickly to see who's on. Let me switch to category. All right. I think we're probably going to go for somebody new that we haven't rated before. But before we do that, I do want to just say thank you guys for joining me both on the Twitch side and the YouTube side. I really appreciate all of the active chatting tonight, and of course the raid. Raiders welcome. And if you guys haven't already, I really appreciate the follows. If you could follow on Twitch and or YouTube, that really helps me out. I'm trying to grow the channel, and I'm trying to, hopefully get more people interested in game engine development, because we need game engine competition out there, right? Like good game engines, right? So I'm hoping to motivate more people to get into that through this resource that I have here, right? So thank you guys for joining me, and I really appreciate it. And we are going to be rating Coding with Strangers. He says he's making his first game. So let's get in there and see what that's about. I've never rated him before, so that is who we're going to raid tonight, because I believe in trying to support smaller streamers. And it looks like he's got about 15 viewers, which is not bad. So, let's ask him about his game, see what he's up to, and we'll go from there. Thank you guys so much again, and I will see you guys in the next stream. See ya.